Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to America's Retirement Headquarters. So glad you tuned in today. My name is Chaz Price, and I am a certified financial planner. And today's presentation is entitled Women in Finance Bridging the Gap. And this webinar is really dedicated to highlighting some of the unique and unfortunately disproportionate financial challenges that women face when it comes to money compared to men. And the reason I wanted to do this presentation now is first and foremost because it's almost Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day if you're a mom out there and you're watching this presentation. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. But more importantly, if even you're not a mom, I think it's still important to highlight some of the advancements that women have made in the workforce, but also to make sure that we're acknowledging the significant challenges in an effort to really advocate for equal pay and for equal financial consideration when it comes to retirement and finance in general. And the goal then is therefore to not only advocate for and highlight, but then to empower and transform. So we're going to talk about some critical issues like longevity, the fact that women typically live longer than men, and wage disparity, of course, the fact that wages are not equal between men and women, and the financial implications of caregiving that disproportionately almost always affect women. So we hope to, at the end of this presentation, give you a clearer path towards financial security and just essentially taking care of the women that are important to you in your life. So with that, let's get started because we do really have an action-packed and busy agenda this afternoon. And before we get started today, I just have to give a quick disclosure in that while I am a financial advisor, I'm not yet your financial advisor, which just means that we're not giving any official advice today. My goal today is just to give you some strategies and some actionable tips and little tidbits of information that you can take back to your trusted advisors and work with them to develop a plan. By the way, if you don't have a financial advisor, please feel free to reach out to the advisors at America's Retirement Headquarters, and our contact information is going to be at the end of the presentation. Okay, let's get started here. So today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, women in investing. And first, we're going to discuss the progress that women have made and some of the strides that they've made in the workforce. And then we're also going to talk about some of the challenges that still remain. And then lastly, we're going to develop some basic steps and concepts that are going to help you address some of your specific goals in the financial plan. We're going to talk about our team approach, which stands for taxes, estate, asset protection, and money management. And then we are going to, last but not least, close out with an example of what a financial plan can do for you, help you to prepare for your ideal retirement, and show you how to get a hold of us again. Okay, and remember, the most important thing that you're going to be able to take away today is that it's important to get started. Don't let another month go by of you not having complete understanding and control of your finances. And because, I know it seems overwhelming for most people sometimes when it comes to finance and financial planning. The biggest problem is to get started. But once you reach out to a financial advisor for help, I think you're at a minimum going to at least be able to have the peace of mind to say that, hey, my financial situation has been evaluated by a professional with more than 20 years of experience, and I'm doing okay. I'm in the best position that I can be in. Worst case scenario, it costs you maybe an hour of your time. Best case scenario, we identify some ways to improve your situation, and you and your family live a very comfortable and enjoyable retirement. Okay, so don't wait, because honestly, guys, you work too hard. You work way too hard to not enjoy a comfortable retirement. If you're working on your feet all day long, my medical professionals out there, my nurses watching this, you know what I mean. You work too hard to not enjoy and be able to have the retirement of your dreams. So don't wait. Give us a call. It won't cost you anything, and at least you'll be able to check that off the box and say, we did some planning. By the way, people spend more time picking out a TV than they do for their financial plan. We're talking about a $250 purchase. Here, we're talking about millions of dollars financial planning and money that you're going to spend over the years, it's worth it to get some help. So take some time, reach out to us, and get started on that financial plan. Okay, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about some of the significant strides that women have made in the workforce. And reality, women are holding more and more management positions, owning more businesses, and generating more money in the economy than ever before. For instance, women make up the majority of the population at just over 51%. And despite some historical challenges, women actually now earn 52% of the household income in America. And additionally, nearly 50.8% of all management and professional jobs are held by women. Moreover, women are at the helm of at least 15 Fortune 500 companies, and 13 Fortune 1000 companies have female CEOs or female leadership, which just kind of gives you an idea of what a diverse perspective from a high level, from business strategy and innovation, that women have brought and contribute to our society. I mean, top 15 Fortune 500 companies, 13 Fortune 1000 companies. There's a significant amount of innovation and accomplishment that comes with that. Moreover, women entrepreneurs account for about 10.1 businesses in the United States, and they employ 13 million people, generating about $1.9 trillion in sales revenues. So collectively, these points paint a picture of a transformative era where women are not only just participants in the economy, but they are key drivers to economic and social progress and success. So as we delve deeper into the webinar, we want to acknowledge the strides that women have made in the United States, but we're also going to be acknowledging the journey ahead because it is a long one, and there is a significant financial impact that some of the initiatives and some of the rules and just society in general has had on women. And we're going to talk about some ways that we can move forward from that and work towards financial equality and empowerment for everyone. Okay, so again, further, just kind of some more statistics. As a consumer, women continue to make impressive strides, controlling approximately 60% of America's wealth and making approximately 80% of household purchasing decisions. And as the primary decision maker in the United States, women's choices about the products and services they buy and sell obviously have a profound impact on the economy. And interestingly, women buy nearly half of the cars in the United States and represent 21% of all first-time home buyers. So these facts alone illustrate that women make up a very formidable force, a very formidable economic force in terms of their buying power, which further underscores the importance of financial literacy for women, which means it's not just about managing money. It's not about tightening up the budget. When we say financial literacy, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the ability to shape the entire economic landscape and change the future of American commerce in general. So again, by being financially savvy, women can ensure that their wealth grows, their investments are sound, and their economic decisions are powerful and have a positive purpose. And financial education is key to unlocking that potential and fostering more prosperous financial futures for everyone, including women. Okay, so now as we said before, we want to highlight the strides, but also the tough journey that lay ahead for financial inequality for women in society today. So the fact of the matter is that women earn today a little over half of the household income, yet find themselves earning less over their lifetime than men, and because of this trend, retire less prepared. For instance, the fact that women earn 74 cents on every dollar earned by a man, is a stark reminder of this persistent wage gap, and this kind of the title that we're we set for this presentation is solving the gap. We need to overcome that significant challenge, or women need to overcome that significant challenge to even be on the same playing field in some cases when it comes to retirement readiness as compared to a comparable man in the same industry. And not only do women earn less than a man over their lifetimes, but they're generally expected to live longer. And life expectancy for a female is 7 years longer than a man. And longevity, therefore, means that women have to be that much more prepared for a longer retirement with more resources, which means with fewer resources typically makes financial planning and saving even that much more critical for women. And then with only 1 in 3 women retiring with a pension, back in 1982, it used to be about 30% of every person had a pension. Now only 1 in 3 women retire with a pension. So if you actually have one, that's pretty good. I think it's about 8% of the people now have pensions. And then of those 8%, 1 in 3 women have one. There's a significant gap in retirement security between the genders, between male and female. So the bigger point is that you have to combine all these factors. It's not just that a woman is subjected to 1 or 2 of these, but generally all of these factors impact a woman disproportionately. And so, it's just that much more crucial that we highlight and we focus and we advocate for programs that can bring this sort of disparity to a head and to address it, because without financial knowledge and the understanding and the tools to navigate these challenges effectively, women in retirement are put at a significant disadvantage. Okay? So that's what we're going to try to focus on today, and that's really what this presentation is designed to do. Here are some more statistics related to gender differences regarding savings and retirement now. So the median contribution rate to retirement savings stand at about 6% and 8% of their salary. So women contribute about 6% and 8% is what a man typically contributes of their salary to retirement. So again, this might indicate a somewhat of a cautious approach to retirement savings, which could be influenced by lack of education about the savings or the disparity in retirement readiness between a man and a woman typically. Could also have to do with just the current income levels. The fact that women make 75 cents to every dollar means that you may, in some cases, not be able to save as much. And it could also be that there are some significant financial obligations that a woman has compared to a man. Maybe if they're a single mom and just kind of having more expense in general for living is obviously going to be a reduction to their savings for retirement. So it's important to consider whether these rates are sufficient to meet your long-term retirement goals. So that's why a financial plan is so critical for a woman to start to develop and to really dig into, because there's going to be a greater dollar amount that you're going to need for retirement, and we really need to dial into what that is to make sure that your savings rates while you're working are sufficient to meet your long-term retirement needs. Okay, furthermore, the median expected retirement savings ranges for a woman between $500,000 to $1 million for a man. So it's pretty clear that there's a wide range of retirement goals between men and women, and this variance then underscores, again, the need for more personalized financial planning to ensure that, again, first of all, your expectations for retirement are realistic and that they can be met. And lastly, 51% of women agree that they are very involved in monitoring and managing their retirement savings, but compared to a man who states that basically 68% of men are, or this study rather states that 68% of men are very involved, underscores and reveals an insight into the importance of proactive financial planning and engagement, especially in uncertain economic times, which I know it's enticing to say that this time is different, but I truly do feel that there are some significant challenges in general, economic challenges on the horizon, such as Social Security deficiencies, our federal deficit, the risk of rising taxes are some really big ones. And so it's important to stay involved and to monitor your investment strategy and your retirement plan, because these dynamics are going to change, and it's going to take a very concerted effort to address these challenges, and just further underscores the need for educational resources that can help women understand and manage their retirement savings effectively and foster a sense of control, and optimism about their financial future. All right, so now we're going to transition into the realm of personal finance. And the goal of this section should be to really recognize that financial planning involves a deeply personal journey about understanding typically where every single dollar you have is going and how it contributes to the financial independence and security for you and your family. And so that's, in a sense, in a nutshell, that's financial planning. Is understanding exactly where every dollar is going. So we're going to delve into the essentials of financial planning from a high level, including budgeting and investing and ensuring that women are equipped to build a prosperous future. But we also recognize that financial planning is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. And so we're going to explore how to tailor some financial strategies to fit your diverse life situations and goals. And then lastly, during this section, I want to point out to how you can focus and keep in mind that financial literacy is not just about numbers. It's about taking control of the things that we can control, especially the financial narrative and some of the things that we tell ourselves as investors and savers. And I really want to focus, or I enjoy focusing the majority of my financial planning discussions with clients about capturing the narrative that they want to have played out, capturing an image of retirement in our clients' minds that paints the picture of success and what achievement means for you, so that you can live the retirement that you've always dreamed. So again, it comes down to visualizing, talking about, and really documenting what that image of a perfect retirement means to you, and then using the combined expertise, the talent, the tools of your financial advisory staff to really implement that strategy, make sure it happens. All right, so let's begin this journey together. Okay, so the old adage is, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail, or when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. However, if you have a plan of action, you're more likely to succeed and you're more likely to reach your goals. And so remember, your plan doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be perfect even, because it's a moving target. Your balances that we project out in the financial plan are never going to be exactly what they are, in the moment when you're looking at the statements. But generally, it kind of gives you something to work towards. It's kind of like an old stock saw of mine. Kind of like an old manager of mine that used to say, when you're flying in pea soup, the pilots up, 30,000 feet can't see in front of their face, but they know that they have the instrumentation. They know that they have altitude and they have gas and, they have speed. This process of financial planning is kind of like checking your altimeter and making sure that your instrumentation is up to snuff, because sometimes you're right, you can't see in front of your face. We don't have a crystal ball, okay? And so it's also important to evaluate how you're doing on a regular basis. And so part of the financial planning process involves monitoring your progress. We typically do that on a 6-month to an annual basis, depending on how complicated your situation is, and making sure that you are setting short-term goals that advance your long-term goals. And this analogy or this concept really was illustrated to me when I heard Tiger Woods doing kind of some amateur training for an amateur, and I saw it on YouTube. And he basically said, rather than shooting for the hole, for the flag 400 yards away, he would pick a spot that was about 2 feet in front of the ball. And his thought process was, if I can get the ball to go at least that far in direction, then I'm going to be directionally correct on the way down, all the way down to the hole, generally speaking. So that kind of illustrates the importance of setting a short-term achievable goal that will build towards your long-term savings goals that are both big and small. And then as your situation changes, we will modify the plan. And then finally, your financial plan should be written. Biggest part of writing down goals is you physically articulate those goals, you put them into the universe, and you have that much more chance of achieving those goals. One of my mentors would always say, in terms of sales and things like that, writing your goals down and monitoring and tracking your progress improves your success by about 20%. And I truly believe that. Having due dates, making sure that the goals are specific and measurable and achievable, and I kind of use underline that, achievable based on realistic assumptions about your income, your spending goals, inflation, and investment returns. And that's really where your financial advisor can help. You can start online, you can do the research yourself, you can use some of the planning calculators that are offered through your employer, and that's great. And I would say if you're not going to do it at all, you may as well do it on your own. Going it alone is still better than not doing it at all. But working with a financial advisor and having an expert give you their opinion on your saving strategy and what our assumptions are, I think is a significant advantage, again, because you work too hard. We work too hard to be wrong. So isn't it worth at least having a couple set of eyes consider some of your assumptions going into the planning process to make sure that you've done the work? And if you don't want to fully do the work, if maybe this isn't your bag and stocks and investments aren't your thing, hire a financial advisor. Let us do the work so that you don't have to. CFPs, particularly certified financial planners, which I am, we are financial professionals who are required to first and foremost uphold a fiduciary standard, which means that along with passing a comprehensive exam, we have to have a bachelor's degree and have to have at least 3 years of experience, as well as maintain high levels of professionalism and technical proficiency. So if you are not a DIYer, if you prefer to hire a professional, work with a certified financial planner, or at least consider working with a certified financial planner, because we are typically held to the highest standard of practice in the industry. We have high levels of professionalism and technical proficiency, and we can help you do the job much more quickly and efficiently in many cases than doing it on your own, or in my opinion, working with a computer, or nowadays AI. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, at America's Retirement Headquarters, we use a TEAM approach. And TEAM stands for taxes, estate, asset protection, and money management. These are the 4 pillars of financial planning that really support and can empower women in their financial journey. These are the 4 pillars that really support and empower women in their financial journey. And the power of our TEAM approach is the comprehensive nature, is the way that all the pieces of the puzzle fit together. Because to be honest, in today's society, with inflation and competing goals that we all have, generally there is a limited amount of resources that most people have towards technically an unlimited number of goals. And so the TEAM approach ensures that not only are we tailoring and addressing our clients' financial plans and needs to the unique circumstances of their financial situation and goals, but we are ensuring that we're not only making recommendations that are suitable, that make sense, we are making recommendations that put our clients in the best possible situation they can possibly be. Not that they're always right necessarily, nobody's perfect, but we have a process and a methodology to determine why we made these recommendations. And in my opinion, having a process and a methodology is almost more important than the outcome itself. And so that is really, I think, where the crux of the issue lies, is that uh, with a limited number of resources, with a longer longevity, a longer planning horizon, with the fact that women generally make less than a man and are typically the ones where they leave the workforce to be a caregiver, understanding how we can leverage the same dollar for multiple goals is an advantage of the comprehensive team approach. And understanding, all of the tax implications on your investments, helping you to navigate all of the estate planning laws and factors, and securing a legacy, ensuring that you're going to draft and have wills and trust and power of attorneys. All these factors will kind of layer on top of each other and, improve or detract from the overall success of the plan. And we're going to get into it in just a couple of minutes. But again, taxes, estate, asset protection, and money management are the four cornerstones of financial independence. And we're going to focus on each one of these in just a second. But I think, again, the whole team approach embodies a holistic approach, which is an important takeaway for women, in that you need to have every single one of these bases covered, because in absence of that, it could potentially impact in a negative way the overall success of your complete plan. And we'll talk about that in just a second. All right, so now we're going to tackle taxes. And taxes, to me, are probably going to be your biggest expense. So if you do your own taxes, please consider getting a second opinion on your tax returns from time to time, because there's a significant opportunity to save you money and save taxes if you're having a professional review your return on an annual basis. And I always pick on, sometimes they're good sports, my accountant friends and my CPAs. I pick on them because they're great at documenting what's happened. They're great historians, if you will. But sometimes they aren't as good at predicting or at making projections about what your tax rate is going to be, and more importantly, coming up with some solutions on how to reduce your taxes. And the reality is, again, that taxes are going to be your biggest expense. For instance, here are the current tax rates in 2024. And as you can see, tax brackets start at 10% and they move all the way up to 37% for the highest wage earners. The other observation that you should take away from this slide here is that notice how the tax brackets jump in certain parts of the bracket. From here, from 10 to 12 is okay. I'm okay with a 2% increase. But from 12 to 22, that's a 10% marginal increase, which means that if I just happen to get, bumped into this new bracket, every dollar that's in that new bracket gets taxed at 22%. That's 10% higher than it would be if it were in the other bracket. So a big takeaway here is that because we pay taxes on the margin, at the marginal rate, we have to really be cognizant and be aware of where our taxes are. Because think about that. How long did it take you to make 10% on your money? It depends on the time frame, but generally it takes a couple, 2-3 years sometimes to make 10% on your money, maybe even sometimes longer. How sad would it be that if, through hard work and in making good investment decisions, we made 10% on our investments, but through poor tax planning, we gave it all back to Uncle Sam, okay? Because you pay tax at big chunks. So keep an eye on that. Make sure that if you do your own taxes, you get a second opinion. If you don't have a tax advisor, we can actually do a review of your tax returns and look for opportunities where maybe we could help you avoid having to pay some taxes. For instance, if you receive capital gains on your 1099, on your 1040, your tax return, if you notice that you pay tax on capital gains, or you received a 1099 for taxable income, there's an opportunity to save you on taxes. And some of the strategies that we use to do that are pretty sophisticated. So you may not just, they may not be second nature to the advisors that you're speaking to. For instance, the concept of asset location comes into play if you're getting taxed on capital gains. Asset location is the concept of locating the appropriate type of investment in the appropriate account type. So everybody's familiar probably, or most people is familiar with the concept of asset allocation. And we'll talk about that later in the presentation. But asset allocation just means splitting your money up amongst as many different asset classes as you need: stocks, bonds, cash, alternatives, gold, and precious metals. Well, the concept of asset location takes it one step further, and it says, okay, once we've identified how much stock, how much cash and bond we need to have, now what type of investment, what type of security is best to fund that bucket? So if you have, for instance, a strategy that calls for dividend paying stocks, most retirees do. Dividends are a return of your money. Essentially, it is money that they're paying you, stock, the common stock. They're paying you a dividend for basically allowing them to use your money. If you are getting taxed on those dividends, it may be better to house or to fund your after-tax accounts, like your brokerage accounts, with companies that don't pay dividends. Companies that a big part of your return is based on the up and down of the share price, versus some companies, we typically call them cash cows, don't move a whole lot. Companies come to mind like a Coca-Cola, or some tried and true investment that's saturated the world essentially, don't grow a whole lot, but they pay a lot, and they're cash cows, so you get a return of your principal. Part of your return is in the form of a dividend. So having those dividends in a tax sheltered account like an IRA or a Roth might make more sense to help you save on tax. Another concept that's fairly advanced is the concept of tax loss harvesting, in which case we look for opportunities to offset capital gains that have been incurred during the year with stocks that we could sell before the end of the year at a loss, and match the two. They wash, and so the net capital gain effectively is closest to zero as possible, rather than just letting those capital gains go by and get taxed and not looking for an opportunity to offset them with a loss somewhere in your investment accounts. And so those are some more sophisticated topics that we can do to help you save on tax. Now, another thing, don't be, resist the temptation essentially to go into one of those rapid tax refund companies. And I'm not taking anything away from them. They're great companies that, they're providing a great service, but sometimes there's high fees. But more importantly, you're missing out on an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with a tax advisor. And I think that taxes are important because, again, it permeates every aspect of your life. We pay tax when we're working, when we buy things, when we're saving for retirement. There's a tax implication. Even when we die, there's a tax that we have to pay to pass money on to the next generation. So because you pay tax in big chunks, don't let an opportunity to do some planning with an experienced financial planner or an accountant or attorney that you trust for tax matters, and don't miss that opportunity to save and have your taxes reviewed. Okay, just in general, the risk though is future taxes will be higher. Now there's some significant legislation that was signed into office in 2017, at the end of 2017 by President Donald Trump at the time, and essentially it took tax rates down to the current rates where they're at now. After 2025, those tax rates are going to expire. Nobody knows exactly what they're going to be. They would likely go back to where they were in 2017 before the TCJA was approved and signed in office, but we don't know. So my question to my viewers is, do you think that future tax rates as high as 88% are possible? That seems preposterous, correct? Well, in actuality, 1960 to 1963, the maximum tax bracket was 87%. Okay, and that was actually part of the impetus, I think, for a little-known actor at the time by the name of Ronald Reagan to really kind of stand on his platform of reducing taxes. And a story that I've heard in the past is that as an actor, Ronald Reagan was commissioned to do generally only 2 movies for the year. and he would make $100,000 per movie. The reason he didn't do 3 movies in a year is because if he did, 100% of that would be taxed at the 87% rate. So it didn't make sense. It was precluding him from being productive in his most productive years because of taxes. The same thing applies to us here, in that if left unchecked, almost like not doing any dental work throughout your entire life. How disastrous would that be, or how expensive would that bill be finally when you had to have the work done? Same thing with your retirement accounts. Don't neglect the fact that there is a significant tax implication built into those investments that you could mitigate, if not completely reduce, based on some proper planning over time, systematically, rather than trying to take care of it all at once. Then from an estate planning perspective, we're going to walk you through the concept of a will and a trust. Now, generally, a will is a document that's effective upon your death, and it is only applicable if you have some resources that go through probate, which is a public court process, can be time consuming and costly, and it's all public information. On the other hand, a trust is a fiduciary arrangement or a document that can manage your assets during your life and at your death. It allows you to pretty much control from the great beyond, and potentially bypassing the costly probate process and keep everything confidential and private. And then you have long-term care planning. And so long-term care is expected to cost the average American about $100,000. And that's not including just regular prescription drugs or regular premiums for your insurance programs. So without proper planning, the cost of long-term care can completely deplete your asset, leaving little assets to pass on to your heirs, or potentially even causing the risk of your retirement assets to capitulate before you pass away, and run the risk of you running out of money while you're living. Okay, because extended care stays in a nursing home are so expensive. I think we probably all have had some experience with a family member that stayed there. So again, similar to the last slide, don't neglect the elephant in the room, which is the likelihood that you probably will need some care. I think it's also important here to note that it is not too late, though. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm already in my 60s. I'm not going to worry about it. I should have done that a lot sooner. Long-term care insurance is going to be so expensive. Well, not so fast, my friend. Like Lee Corso would say, not so fast. There are programs where you can actually use your investable assets to invest into a program or an investment account that would cover the calamity that if at any point you needed you need help with 2 of the daily activities of living, walking, dressing, bathing, transferring, continence, eating. If you need help with any of those 6, then the long-term care aspect of that investment would kick in and help cover some of the cost. So it is important. You definitely want to incorporate some sort of estate plan to help improve the overall the probability of success of your retirement assets by ensuring an efficient and cost-effective transfer of assets to the next generation, if that is important to you. Again, coming back to the the importance of your specific plan and making sure that we're addressing your unique concerns. Not everybody cares about leaving money to the next generation. I've had people even say, Chaz, I want my last check, I want my checking account to be overdrawn when I die. That's up to you guys. But if passing money on to the next generation, even just what's left, is a goal of yours, then having a well-structured estate plan is and should be a primary goal of yours to discuss with your advisor during the financial planning process. And asset protection. I wish we could talk about this first, but the team approach really, the acronym T has a start with taxes, but asset protection is probably one of the most important aspects of your financial plan, because accidents happen, stuff happens, and insurance can provide protection from an unexpected illness or an unexpected risk or something that happens just you weren't expected. Illness, disability, death, any loss of income associated with one of those calamities. Insurance can also help protect against and ensure that liquid assets are available to pay your estate taxes. So if you're one of the folks that prefer to leave and maybe even build a generation and create generational wealth, if you didn't have it, a large amount of insurance could create a generational transfer of wealth that could completely change your children's and your children's lives through proper planning. And then also, as we said before, life insurance, hybrid policies have medical, disability, and long-term care riders or provisions that are built into the contract that say, first and foremost, this policy is for the care of future generations, recovering lost income if a spouse passes away. But if we live long, fruitful life, pass away comfortably at age 100 around our family, then it has the aspect of covering, it's tax-free, so it'll cover some taxes. But if you need it for long-term care before then, or medical or disability, the policy is going to be there. And generally what happens is, in a policy like that, the face value or the dollar amount of the death benefit becomes available to the insured if they, again, need help with two of the daily activities of living. And so these are some of the products that are available to you. Term life, which is coverage that you have for a specific time. It has death benefit protection. It does not build cash value, so generally there aren't any benefits available, for long-term care. And in some cases there are some. We've seen some policies. I just don't like generally that term policy for that need, because I need it to be there. And what happens if I bought a 15-year term policy with a long-term care rider on it, and the policy expires in year 16, and then I go on claim? So you need almost a permanent policy. So term policies are not permanent. They're for a particular term. But your whole life, your universal life insurance policies, your indexed universal life insurance policies, these are all permanent policies, which means they're going to be there as long as you pay the premium, as long as, based on the claims paying ability of the insurance company, of course. And, the way that the cash value builds is a little different between each three. Essentially, the whole life policy, if you pay that premium, you will have insurance for your whole life. The universal policy gives you the flexibility to say, hey, if the market's doing well, maybe I don't need to make a premium payment this year. However, if the market is not doing well, or the investment sub-accounts, the investments inside that insurance policy are not doing well, you may have to pay more. And then an indexed universal gives you kind of a combination between whole life and universal. And it's almost gives you a guarantee that says if you make this premium payment, you will have some insurance. The market will dictate some of the performance of the cash value in the policy, but at least we'll have a little bit more certainty as to what is ultimately going to be available to pay for long-term care or the death benefit for our family in the future generations. Okay, so now we're going to move on to money management. So we've covered taxes, we've covered asset protection, we've covered estate. Now we're going to cover money management. And so there are a couple rules of thumb here, but every good financial plan should include a way or a plan designed to accumulate and grow and help fund your goals. So first and foremost, saving automatically as much as possible we recommend in your retirement plans like 401ks, 403bs, and IRAs. So you want to definitely, if you can, max those plans out. Now, one of the takeaways here is that generally people will just contribute, the minimum amount that they need to get the match, and that's fine. But again, you have to make sure that that's the appropriate amount, because just because you're getting a match doesn't mean that that's the portion that you should be saving to meet your retirement goals. So working with a professional, even doing some of the online calculations, is helpful to determine what that dollar amount can be. We also recommend that each year you make a point to increase your contributions systematically. So let's say, for instance, you get a 2% raise. you're not even going to notice it. Just put that 2%, just increase your contribution to 2%. So if you're doing 6 previously, you got a 2% raise, just move that 2% into your 401k, and now you're contributing 8%. You will definitely see benefits, and you will appreciate having done that over the years. Now, for shorter term goals, like maybe purchasing a car or saving for a down payment on a house, you want to consider short-term vehicles like CDs or certificates of deposit, which are timed investments at a bank, generally FDIC insured, but they give you some principal protection, some safety, and you get a pretty decent interest rate. Also, money markets, really profitable investments for savers right now. We have money markets available that are paying over 5%, which just means they're liquid. You can get access to that money at any time. And also short-term government bonds, I-bonds, things like that have a principal guarantee that are safe, are great vehicles for shorter-term savings goals. For longer-term saving goals, now you want to look at a mix of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or packaged products that have multiple stocks and bonds built into it. So for simple, for novice investors maybe that don't know which stocks particularly to buy, a mutual fund offers you a diversified approach that is basically a pool of investors' money. We all contribute together, and together we can buy more and help reduce the risk of individual security going out of business. So by watching this webinar, you've already taken a pretty important step in continuing your financial education. But I think the next level you should really look into is working with a financial advisor and getting answers to your questions, because the market, money management, it's a lifetime of learning. I've spent the better part of my adult life studying these concepts, and not that it's something that you can't just pick up, but it really goes a mile deep and a mile long. And so each one of these investments, stocks, bonds, and cash, has certain different objectives. Each investment that is a stock has performed differently, has performed historically, relative to other stocks differently, and it has an associated reaction to varying market conditions, which we may or may not be currently in, or we may be expected to enter them with a pretty great degree of certainty. A good example of this was in 2022, when we saw the fastest increase in history of interest rates. Now, bonds are very, very sensitive to interest rates. And so for an unsuspecting client that didn't know that fact, that interest rates, the price of bonds affect or interest rates affect the price of bonds. So if interest rates go down, prices go up. If interest rates go up, prices go down. And the most conservative investors lost a lot of money in 2022. Not to say that we were completely immune from that because it happened so fast, but how did we recover? And the strategy was to move our clients from bonds into stocks, something that is going to recover, because interest rates in a rising rate environment, bonds in a rising rate environment, are not going to recover. It is a mathematical known, just about in every scenario, that you will lose money on your bond portfolio. So why do we own it? We knew that the government was going to be taking interest rates up with a pretty great degree of certainty. So we pretty much eliminated most of our bond exposure within a reasonable amount of time and switched our clients more leaned into the stock market and owned cash-like investments. So it's not that we're ever not going to be wrong or we're going to be caught, you get punched in the mouth, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. We got punched in the mouth, the financial advisor community, in 2022, but how did we get off the canvas? Or did we just go and hide and not answer our phone and wait for the markets to recover, which the bond market still to this day has not recovered? So if you don't know how much bond you have in your portfolio, you need to work with an advisor to be able to give you that insight so that you know if interest rates do happen to go up again, which they may. They're impacted by inflation. Inflation goes up, rates go up. You may need to reallocate or reassess some of the risk in your portfolio. Okay, so those are some of the ways, some of the takeaways that we have for our clients, particularly bond investors right now in volatile interest rate environments, and cash, clients that are sitting on a ton of cash. Don't assume that the bank is paying you a commiserate rate, what they're should supposed to be paying you. If you aren't getting at least, I'd say 4 to 5% currently on some of your cash and savings and money market balances, give us a call as well, because we have investment accounts that are liquid. You can get access to them within 24 hours and they're paying over 5%. Okay, so that's kind of a quick takeaway on money management. Now that we understand the three basic classes, stocks, bonds, and cash, a couple key takeaways or some points or some considerations that women investors would probably want to know is, first and foremost, you want to have that rainy day fund. So your money markets, your savings, generally, most people probably don't need to carry more than 3 to 6 months of living expenses. If you really want to be conservative, you can carry, 6 to 12 months of expenses, but you don't need to overdo it. Also, don't try to time the investments. What do I mean by that? Well, don't try to get into the market when you think or you feel it's a good opportunity, and then when things go bad, you're going to get out and you're going to try to get back in again. When you jump in and out of the market like that, I always tell my clients we have to be right twice. We have to be correct on the way out when we sell, and then we have to be right on the way in. And that's extremely difficult to do even one time, to be right on the way out, but then also to be right on the way back in. Most financial professionals who spend a lifetime doing this can never get that right one time to find the bottom somewhere, but then we have to do it 30 years because this is not just a 1-year investment. This is a 30-year investment. And the other thing is that there's 10,000 different stocks. We have to be able to say we're diversified, probably, 30 to 40 different stocks, or 30 to, depending. But in general, even if you had 2 or 3 mutual funds representing growth, stocks, bonds, cash, let's say you had 4 mutual funds, you would have to time the market for each one of those positions twice, on the way out, the way in, and you'd have to do it consecutively over a 30-year basis. It's statistically impossible. Don't waste your time. The investors that think they can time the market eventually end up with about an average of a 2% rate of return. The market, just by leaving it alone, generally will get you about a 10%. Okay? Instead, use a process called dollar cost averaging. So dollar cost averaging means that I'm going to invest a fixed amount of money into my retirement accounts on a regular basis, systematically, regardless if the market is up or down, taking emotion, what we think or feel out of it, and adding a methodology to it. That is the way that you're going to be the most successful, is removing from this discussion what you think or feel generally about the market. Doesn't matter. What does matter is what you're paying for things. And if we are systematically investing over a period of 6 to 12 months, a fixed dollar amount, inevitably the market will go down and we will be able to purchase more shares at that lower price. And then as the stock market goes up, the shares that we've purchased appreciate. Yes, we're buying less shares when the market is up, but conversely, when the market is down, we're buying more shares, so that ultimately helps to average out your average price and make the ride a little bit more smoother. So that's the process of dollar cost averaging and implementing a systematic and methodical approach that's based on math and based on theory, not based on what we think or feel. Okay? And then lastly, just know that risk and return are correlated, meaning the more risk you're taking, the more return you should expect to get. Now, this comes into play now more so than it has pretty much my entire career while interest rates were low. So while interest rates were low for the better half of the 2000s, effectively zero, stock market, pretty much any stock, was an attractive investment to a rational investor, because most investors will rate the risk-reward trade-off for making an investment based on what is my fixed option? What do I have available that's risk-free? And in the early parts of 2000, there was no risk to speak of. So many clients, particularly ones that were looking for income in retirement, were forced to buy stocks. It artificially pushed the market up because there was no other alternatives. Now, you have to be a little more selective. We have to do a little bit more careful research, kind of dig through the rubble, if you will, and upgrade quality on our stocks, because the risk-free rate, what used to be 0, is now 5, close to. Let's say for 5, because you can get a CD for 5%. So all other things being equal, if my risk-free rate on CDs is 5, I'm going to need to have a stock that's generating maybe 10 or something more than 5 for sure. And that difference there is what we call risk premium. Now, the risk premium is less for some stocks and some investments than it is for others. And as an investor, you need to know pretty much what's the value to you? What are you getting in exchange for the risk of potentially losing this money? If we're going to invest in the market, what do I expect to get? And that is a risk-reward trade-off discussion that really only some very advanced, I would say not advanced, but knowledgeable investment professionals are able to have with you. Not only have that conversation, but to be able to articulate it in a way that makes sense. And at the Retirement Guys, we boil your risk-reward trade-off down into a number, just like a speed limit. So if you're going 60, you get that risk, right? If you're going 30, driving on 475 here in Toledo, Ohio, you're going 30 miles an hour, you're probably going to get, run over from behind, but you're not going to hit somebody in front of you. It's not going to be caused by you. It's a very slow process. It's a methodical rate of return. Very low risk is a 30 speed limit. Versus going 90, you get that there's a lot of risk there. So work with an advisor. Don't let them categorize you based on a word like moderate or growth or aggressive. Please don't let them categorize you with or label you with generic terms. It's bigger than that. It takes a lot more than just answering 10 questions and how you feel today to determine a lifelong risk tolerance. Okay, I'll get off my box. All right, so again, asset allocation is important. Essentially, the process of splitting your assets amongst various different assets effectively reduces the risk of the overall portfolio. This is what we know to be true about investments in the market since 1960. Modern portfolio theory developed by Harry Markowitz, Nobel Prize winning research that said by adding risk, you reduce risk essentially. And I think most people get that. I like to work out, so I use the analogy. It's kind of like working out, focusing on the form, okay, and the structure of the movement is going to be more impactful to your muscle groups than it is how much weight you have. And you just imagine, you've seen it in the gym where some person is lifting way too much weight. There's no business. They don't need to be, putting that much pressure on a relatively small muscle group. Focus on the structure. And that's really what we focus on here, is that diversifying, owning multiple asset classes is ultimately going to change your overall risk profile for the better. And it doesn't take a whole lot of heavy lifting to do it. It's not the individual stocks in the portfolio that are going to contribute most to your success. It is the structure, how much stock you have. Okay. Also, we talked about changing dynamics, women going, more into the workforce. Also, changing societal dynamics. More couples are getting divorced. Almost 50% of marriages end in divorce. 18% of families are being headed by single moms. And, really that just underscores the need for independence, particularly so if they end up becoming caregivers, which almost always disproportionately impacts a woman. And so, which would obviously, reduce the time that you have in the workforce to save for retirement. So some key takeaways to offset this risk is plan early. Start by saving in a relatively small amount and use the power, the magic, the eighth wonder of the world of compounding to significantly increase your savings balance over time. Also, consider having multiple income streams. This could be part-time work, maybe freelance projects, rental properties, just making sure that if one source of income is interrupted, you have another source of income that can help supplement. And then insurance and emergency funds, keeping that 6 to 12 month cushion and having some insurance for unexpected expenses can help reduce the risk of leaving the workforce and not saving enough for retirement. Okay? All right, so how much do you need for retirement? That's probably what everybody's wondering. And again, it is a personal decision, but experts estimate that you could generally live on about 75 to 100% of your pre-retirement income in retirement. And that's just, at the doorstep of retirement. You're going to need that money every year. So here's a hypothetical example that utilizes the 80% of pre-retirement assumption. And it's a gauge for retirement preparedness. So you can look and see that assuming you're going to spend 25 years in retirement, then and you have an annual income of $40,000 for those 25 years, you're going to need a lump sum of $689,000 at retirement. And again, that's before taking into consideration the rising cost of healthcare and long-term care or assisted living. This is just for the basics. When, like we said, average couple is probably going to need about $250,000 for long-term care alone. So this slide just kind of gives you an idea. If you're making $75,000, plan on $60,000 being your retirement income gap, you're going to need about $1.2 million. Okay, let's talk quickly about Social Security. So how many people think that Social Security will completely take care of them in retirement? Hopefully there aren't a whole lot of hands going up if you're watching this video. But when you're preparing for your own retirement, you should really think about the fact that generally women are going to earn less in Social Security, and primarily that's because of the earnings disparity that we've talked about. The fact that most women make about 75% of what a man in a similar job would make. Also, women tend to leave the workforce between 11 to 15 years, be out of the workforce. That's usually to raise children or to be a caregiver for a family member. Okay, so you can see how that impact being out of the workforce could significantly impact your Social Security. In fact, the average Social Security at the end of 2023 for a man was $1,767, but for a woman it was $1,658. So that's almost $100 per month. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but that could definitely add up over time. So what you're going to want to do, particularly with taxes we talked about are going to be your biggest expense. So if you can avoid having to pay tax on up to 85% of your Social Security, that's definitely going to be a positive goal to work towards. So some of the things that we can do, the first place to start is getting a Social Security optimization report, which is a guide that's going to give you some essential information about how to make informed decisions that can significantly impact the amount of Social Security that you receive, but also the longevity of your retirement assets. So it may seem counterintuitive to most that oftentimes when we're starting to have the conversation about Social Security and someone comes to us and says, well, I haven't enjoyed good health, I'm thinking about taking it at age 62, we can't just take that on face value. We have to have a little bit more information, particularly what about your spouse? Because if you're making this decision for two, then sometimes it's not about you, especially if you are the higher wage earner in the family. Because by waiting till age 70 or 67, the benefit that you receive will ultimately become your spouse's survivor's benefit. And in your absence, your Social Security is gone. Your wife or your husband would get the higher of the two. So you're going to lose some income if a spouse passes away. Better to at least, consider maximizing your Social Security so that in your absence, your spouse has the maximum income coming in for the rest of their life. And just keep in mind that once you make that decision, it's irrevocable too. So before you pull the trigger, if you are listening and you are in that peak baby boomer generation, meaning you're turning 65 between now and 2030, it's a good time to start talking about your Social Security claiming decision. And a good place to start is getting a Social Security optimization report. Okay? All right. The other thing we'll talk about here real quick is the widow's tax. Widow's tax, I get this question a lot. Widow's tax is the fact that it is the concept where when your spouse is alive, you have the ability to file joint taxes, which means bigger standard deduction. But after 2 years of your spouse being deceased, you no longer have the ability to file jointly. You have to file single or head of household, which significantly reduces your standard deduction. And so that's by by having a lower standard deduction is essentially a tax. It's a pseudo tax that almost disproportionately, once again, is faced by women, and particularly elderly women, who are widowed. And so it's really a bad beat, that we can help offset that risk by doing things like, again, paying taxes up front, getting them out of the way, doing Roth conversions. I wrote about that in the newsletter. Okay, so there are things we can do, but make sure that you're assessing the impact of losing a spouse, the financial impact, particularly on your Social Security benefits, by getting that complimentary Social Security optimization report. We'll run that for you at no cost. All right, and so if you haven't started already, I want to urge you guys to take the first step and start saving for your retirement early. And this is for all my young daughter and son and everybody out there. If you're thinking about waiting to save for retirement, don't. So here's an example of Ann. And Ann started at age 21, and she contributed just $30 a week for 14 years. Her total contributions to her retirement account were $21,840. Now, Tracy, her friend, waited until she graduated and got a big girl job or a good job, and she started contributing at 35. And before and then she began contributing $30 a week for the next 30 years. So Tracy's total contributions were more than double Ann's. She contributed $46,800. But as you can see from the graph, Ann contributed less over a shorter period of time and has almost twice as much in retirement as Tracy, because her original contributions continued to work for her long after she stopped contributing. So for Tracy to have tried to catch up, she would have had to have almost doubled her weekly contributions for those 30 years. So the moral of the story is start saving now. Don't wait. It takes a relatively small amount of money. It takes almost double that if you start too late. And the longer you wait, the more it's gonna cost you to catch up. So start today. Okay, so the ARHQ financial plan. This was kind of our offer to our listeners. It's a basic financial plan in the sense that it's going to cover all your basics, but it is so intuitive and so powerful. It's going to give you a lot of tools that, if you want to get really nerd out, if you will, into the numbers or get into the weeds, it provides you that ability. So it's comprehensive in that it's covering individuals, families. It's going to give you a seamless view into your savings goals. So saving enables you, the right capital enables you to set and track specific savings goals, particularly for your emergency and vacation fund. And it also will help you allocate those funds and monitor the progress and adjust it as needed. It also does a spending analysis. So you can actually link up. The platform will aggregate your financial accounts, like your bank accounts, your mortgage, your credit cards, and to provide you a clear picture of your spending habits. So I use the analogy of kind of like weight loss. You know that even through the best workout regimen, that if we don't have less coming in, than what we're expending in calories, it doesn't matter. You have to, have less coming in and be putting out more to lose weight. Well, it's the same thing with your investments. We can't save unless we spend less. And we have to be diligent in knowing where every dollar is spent. Now, when I say that to the non-financial types that are listening, they probably gloss over to say, Chaz, I don't want to know exactly where every dollar is spent. I don't live that way. And I get that. But how much more freeing, walk with me for a minute now, how much more freeing would it be for you to spend $500 on something, on whatever you wanted, and not have to be and spend it guilt-free because you've already earmarked that spending for just that. That's the concept of a $0 budget that will account for every dollar that's coming in and make sure that you have an appropriate savings for discretionary bucket to enjoy, and so that you can spend guilt-free and still enjoy the lifestyle and retirement that you've always dreamed. Okay, so that's one of the budgeting tools. Then obviously on the screen here you can see the retirement planning tool. It gives you very, very quickly, very easily a probability of success, meaning what is the likelihood of you meeting all of your goals in a current scenario, and then if we make some changes, does that improve or does that detract from the success of your overall plan? So oftentimes when clients come to us and have questions, whether, let's say, for instance, should they finance a house or pay cash, take it right out of their investments, we'll run that cash flow, that scenario in their financial plan, and at least get some information to say whether or not, statistically speaking, does this improve or does this detract from your financial plan? Not whether, it doesn't mean that you don't necessarily do it, but it could just mean that at least you have some information and you're informed. So this is a very powerful tool. It's made available at no cost to all of our clients, generally, that come and have a conversation with us and start a financial plan. You walk away with a written detailed analysis, very similar to this. We don't charge you for it. If you choose to implement some of the recommendations that are covered and revealed in the plan, we talk about that in a subsequent meeting. We call that our observations review, where we spell out the account types, the dollar amounts, the fees, how we're compensated, all of those details. If you decide to move and maybe you're a strong DIYer and you're going to do it yourself, that's perfectly fine too. We shake hands and we wish you the best. And so if that's something that you're interested in, you can reach out to us. Here's our contact information coming up, actually in the future slide, but we do offer quite a few other seminars. If this has been educational to you and you've enjoyed it, please visit us on the web at www.arxq.com to register for an upcoming in-person educational seminar and learn more about topics such as Medicare 101. This is probably one of our most highly attended. Social Security optimization, retirement planning, and truth about annuities are close second and third. Very well attended, very informative, and hopefully enjoyable sessions. Be worth an hour of your time. Maybe get a couple snacks along the way too. But yeah, reach out to us. We have quite a few other programs that I think could definitely benefit you in the future. So again, our contact information. Thank you for tuning in. If you've gotten this far, give us a like on the previous screen. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And give us a call here at 419-740-5050. You can also email me at chaz@theretirementhq.com if you have any other questions, want to just kind of chat about your situation or schedule an appointment. And then visit us on the web to learn about some of the other sessions that we have and what's coming up in your area. So again, thank you very much. Have a good day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.